Welcome to the Revenue Builders Podcast, a weekly show featuring B2B sales leaders and executives. Hosted by five-time CRO John McMahon and Force Management co-founder John Kaplan, the show goes behind the scenes with the people who have been there, done that, and seen the results. If you enjoy our content, please subscribe, rate, and review the show to help us reach more people. Revenue Builders is brought to you by Force Management. We help companies improve sales performance, executing the growth strategy at the point of sale. Find us at forcemanagement.com. Enjoy today's episode.
Hello and welcome to the Revenue Builders Podcast. I'm John McMahon. I'm here with my friend and colleague, John Kaplan, also known as Cap.
Johnny Mac, good to be with you today, brother.
How are you, buddy?
Fantastic.
So, Cap, I got an amazing guest, multi-talented producer, author, entrepreneur. He started a 15-year sales career selling hardware in the beginning at AT&T, Lucent, Cisco. Then he started selling software at a company called Geotel and then also Watchfire. Since then, he's gone on, he's authored 2 books. The first one is 90 Seconds to Impress, and the second one is The 6 Lessons for Producing a Winning Commercial. He's produced 3 feature films. I mean, this guy's unbelievable, right? And his company, RIP Media, R-I-P Media, has created over 300 live and animated commercials, TV commercials, marketing videos, sales videos for startups and for major companies like Deloitte, Ben & Jerry's, Cisco, Black & Decker, Kaiser Permanente, and LexisNexis. Cap, let me introduce to you the CEO of RIP Media, Maury Rogow.
Maury, it's great to meet you, brother. I got to be honest, just a little bit of truth here. I'm thinking we're interviewing a 75-year-old guy with that kind of bio. I didn't believe when I saw your face. I'm like, that can't be the same dude.
Zoom is good to me. Zoom is good to me. I'm much older in person. Don't worry.
Nice to meet you, brother.
He's done a lot. Maury's done a lot of stuff, and we're going to get into that. But hey, why don't we just jump into it right now? So, Maury, you have a mantra.
Yeah.
And you say your brand will live or die based upon the story you tell. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Absolutely. Yeah. I've been saying a couple updates. We're at 1,000 commercials now. So
1,000,
it's been a lot more.
I'm sorry. I apologize.
No. That's all right. That's on my side. I'm proud. And sometimes when I hear that, John, I'm like, man, that's a cool career. Oh, that was mine. That's what I'm doing. I hear that like it's somebody else. It's very cool to hear that. So thank you again for having me here. You guys are legends. So, so your sales will thrive or die based on the story you tell.
Right.
And that's for the salespeople, and it's for executives too. Your brand will thrive or die based on the story you tell. And the reason I say that is it's all based on fact, but I got to get it across fast, right? That's really what we do. So salespeople are failing out there because they don't have the basic skills to grab attention and then be memorable, right? The deal is, let's say you get a sales cycle, there's 10 touches with the customer. It's probably more like 30, but let's say it's 10 touches that a customer is going to take before they make a purchase decision, especially in B2B. It's going to be more. 70% of that is done without the salesperson being there. So you've got to have your customer journey lined up. And then when you get your 30% shot, your 3 shots with the customer, with the decision maker, you have to make it count. You have to be telling the right stories at the right time to the right people, right? You got to tell the right story to the right person, and you got to know where they are in this customer journey. Because if you don't, oh, yeah, sure. You get plenty of sales without your story in there and without the customer story. They're probably low value. They're probably the chip shots. You're probably making quota or getting near quota. But the folks that are really good at this, the folks that really can tell a great story, get to the point and get somebody else to share, they're the ones bringing in the 6, the 7, even 8-figure deals because they're building relationship. And that's why I say your company's going to thrive or die based on the story you tell.
Yeah, we see too many salespeople these days. Instead of using PowerPoint, I say that they're using Power Story. Like they put up a slide and it's just all these words. And your first reaction is, I don't want to read that. Just tell me what it says.
Right.
So why do you think that so many salespeople just try to make it more complex than simple?
As a salesperson, it's tough. I say this, I think it's because there's so much product training, right? As much as they know I got to add value, I got to tell a good story, I got to make myself different and unique from the competitors out there. Their product team saying like, we do this, we do that. It's this footprint. It's this size rack. It's 24 ports, not 16, whatever, right? You're selling hardware, you're selling software to get into this feature battle. And then they're trying to convert it. I just got product training. And I remember that old Sandler training I got 10 years ago or whatever it might've been. And they're trying to convert it. They're like, I'm just going to jam everything in here. I got to make sure they see everything. The more information, the better. And this is pretty cool. I just found this out recently. The amount of information that think about your buyer, like think about a customer. Right. A customer is pulling in and seeing more information in one day than we did in a lifetime when our founding fathers started this country.
I've seen that same stat. Right. Mind-blowing, isn't it? Yeah.
Right. And it's not like, we had all that capacity to pull it all in. No, we're filtering stuff out. Your customers are filtering things out all the time. What's important? Is this going to solve a pain? Is this going to get me to my future that I want? Is this going to transform me? Right? Those are the three things that if it does this, I'll pay attention. And if you throw a bunch of facts at me, forget about it. I'm not going to remember you. I'm remembering a fact sheet. Maybe you got more facts, more features. I'll go with you. But if you remember it, if you tell it as a story, right?
On that vein, Maury, you talk about.
I'm sorry, John, just hold on 1 second. So Maury, I just want to go to that point where you said how it will transform me. I always thought that people walk around with written on their forehead, what's in it for me? Yeah. And not enough salespeople make that emotional connection to the buyer or the personal connection. So how do you tell a story and inject, emotion into your story?
Right. Well, I've got rules. So just a quick history. So just as you said, I came from technology sales. I wasn't born into Hollywood and then, hey, I'm just going to make movies like my dad or anything like that. Nothing like that. I came out here with the ability to sell that I learned. Here are the things that I do. And by having the ability to sell, I got myself onto the lot at Warner Brothers and then was in a movie with George Clooney and Brad Pitt and Al Pacino, Wow. And that was because I talked my way in. Yeah. And I found what are the needs? What do they have? What are they missing? And this is a casting agency. What's the problem they have? Oh, they got that problem. Well, I'll solve that problem. So I called back in and all of a sudden I'm out on Warner Brothers studio where they made Titanic and this biggest stage in the world. And the whole thing was cool because I had that skill. So how to start transforming it was, man, there's just so many. So I come up with acronyms all the time. All right. I don't know if you guys like them or not, but for me, I need them because they're visual cues. I can see these are the things I need in the story. How do I make it impactful? So first rule, I'll go into the rules if you want, maybe a little later or now, but the main thing is, guys, salespeople, execs, it's not about you. It's about how you help those folks on the other side of the table.
Right.
They need to be the hero. They need to be the ones that transform. You got into what you're doing to make their lives better. If you walk in there to serve, right? The what's in it for me, I love that. What's it, whiff them on their forehead is awesome. Yeah. So if you think what's in it for me, they're thinking what's in it for me to be sitting here with you. You've got to help them solve the problem. So the hero of the story is them. You're not the hero. Don't tell me you're here to make a bunch of money. Don't tell me the IPO is going to put a 10 million in your pot. Nobody wants to hear that. They want to hear how it helps them. And if you get served because of it, fantastic. But they're the hero of the story. So I think that's number one. You ain't the hero. The other person's the hero of the story.
So that would probably help. There's a couple things I heard you say. 70% of the information is consumed by a customer before they interact with you, and how a seller might interpret that is, that's even less time for me to tell a story about myself or to be liked, or the use of a story to be liked or to get their attention. And there's this disconnect, I think, in sellers' minds that say, customer already thinks they know us and they're getting to us at the end of their buying cycle because there's so much information available to them. How do you give sellers the courage and people the courage to still be able to tell a story, but be relevant based upon where a customer is in a buying journey? Does that make sense?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
So some of it's, I don't want to say some of it, a lot of it is knowing where they are in the customer journey. Because there's a different story that you got to have in your back pocket for each stage, right? Somebody's coming in after they spend time on the website, talk to your competitors. Maybe you got a champion or an advocate out there that's on your side or, really interested. You've got to do your discovery. You got to find out what's their personal win, right? You just got to ask. And this is why I think the story matters. You share a story, how you came to be here, and then ask them. So how did my story is literally, I'm a kid from Pittsburgh. I saw people that were like, the tip top of the world. They were making $70,000 a year. And I was like, oh my God, I'd have a mansion if I had 70,000. We had a pretty, not humble. I did literally shovel coal into the furnace every night at 2 and then 4. My brother was supposed to be the 6 o'clock shift, but he always slept in. So at 4 o'clock, I would do like double the amount. I would shovel the coal in there. And then the whole house, it's about 110 degrees, right? So we're sweating. And then 2 hours later, we're freezing again anyway. So, I did come from that. So to go from there to, being in Hollywood's pretty, it's just amazing to see that. But it's all about how did these guys that were doing this cool stuff on TV, how are they doing something so amazing that I couldn't even imagine as I'm shoveling coal? How do they do that? I want to learn about that. I want to learn how they tell stories. It's, and again, I don't really share that story, but it's true. And then, hey John, where did you come from? What's your background? Where'd you grow up?
Yeah, it's interesting. So when you're coaching companies, it's not just you're being audible ready to tell your story. It's to get somebody emotionally connected to that process of storytelling. And so they share a story. I've read that in your literature. It's that's a big time skill.
Yeah, you talk about stuff. What is the stuff?
Sure, the stuff. Yeah, the stuff. So I boiled it down because when I came out here, there are these, I dove into Hollywood and I took acting classes. I actually wrote stand-up comedy. I did stand-up comedy. Crazy. I ended up directing and then producing and so on. So, figuring out all these things, I had this sheet of about 200 adjectives. These are emotions, right? These are the emotions you feel. And I started watching all these movies, read all these books, and then I took everybody out, directors out to lunch, to a coffee, that kind of stuff. And, throwing a meal at people out here was currencies. That worked. You know what I mean? People, they're like, part-time barista, part-time director, that kind of thing. It was a big struggle. And
sounds like Hollywood.
Yes, that is. So I'd ask them all these things, and then I started boiling it down. I'm like, all right, there's 5 emotions that drive a scene. Sort of everything that I do now is I'll compare Hollywood to sales, and they really have a lot of tie-ins together. So the scenes that move a movie forward, the scenes that move a show forward and make you want to say, what happens next? I want to know what happens next. You're watching a good story if you're like, I want to know what happens next. I'm not going to click the remote. I want to know. So it's the stuff. STUFF. Is the story or what you're saying, does it sizzle? Is it sexy? Right? Is it visually sizzling, visually sexy, that kind of thing? And I'm talking Transformers, robot, sizzle, sexy, that kind of thing. Doesn't have to be, person on the beach, that kind of stuff. But that's the S. T is touch the heart, emotions. Can you relate to what I'm going through or what I went through to get here? What did you go through? And then I want you to spend more time with your kids. You installed this software with the trouble ticketing system that we have built in place. You're not taking calls all night long and missing sleep in your daughter's soccer game. You're able to be with her and spend more time as a great parent because you're more efficient at work, right? So it's STU. you is totally unexpected. A lot of commercials that took risks do this, like the Dollar Shave Club, original, just viral video commercial took off like a rocket. They went totally unique and unexpected. And your brand has to be unique and do some things that are unexpected. Otherwise, you're just like everybody else. You just have a different name. You have to be unique. And then the two F's, funny and fear. So funny is it's fantastic, right? If you can be funny, go for it. If you're not naturally funny, you can back down to humor, self-deprecating humor, that kind of thing. But if people laugh, they're more relaxed, they open up. The other F is fear, and that could be fear of missing out, right? FOMO, or just, lack of security in their job. If you're selling like to the HR department, lack of security, literally security systems and software and SaaS and things like that. So what's the lack of security personally? So STUFF, or this sort of the breakdown. And you can use one or two in each story. And you also need to pepper it across your website. Got to put it in those infographics. You got to put it in the videos. It's not the same theme all the time, but you use a mixture of them. And then you got a winning formula.
That's really powerful, Maury. And when you're going to present something to an audience, whether that's through a commercial you make, a short video, or if I'm going to do a presentation as a salesperson,
sure.
What do you think is a typical attention span? How long do I have to connect to that audience?
That's great. It depends on the environment. Okay. So if they came in, they're sitting down in your office, right? They came in, maybe you're in your conference room, you're doing the big presentation. You got time. You've got, snippets. You got to grab them in 8 seconds. And then you got about 30. And then 30 buys you more, right? And then it starts all over again. Right. So it's 8, 27, 56 is basically, if you're watching a video, those are the timelines.
Say that again. It's 8, it's 27, and it's
56 seconds. But then I have to keep them, to your earlier point, I have to keep them wanting to know what's coming next. Exactly.
Right. Otherwise I'll lose them again.
You'll lose them. And again, we have, like I was saying before, we have 70,000 pieces of information, thrown at us every day. It's hard to sift through all this. So people are going to, be attracted to, I now say it's 3 different types, right? There's 3 different types of learners, like, the guys that were great in college, for example, probably great readers, visual, that kind of stuff. Me, I had to go to the presentations. I had to go to class. I didn't have to study as much if I went to class, because I pick it up because I'm very visual, right? He'd write on the board, or she would say this and tell the story, whatever. I got it. But if it was just read the books, that's not my thing, but for some people it is. Then the other one is the other learning type. So there's audio, visual, and then kinesthetic.
Yes.
And these are the people that they got to touch it. They got to feel it. They got to do the demo. They got to sit down with your engineer, whatever it is, and see how this thing works, and they process it. They might not have been great in college, but their careers are flying now because they're now actually able to use the thing, product, software, that kind of thing. So you got to touch each of those. So
how do you in one presentation hit all of those different people? How do you hit the auditory, kinesthetic, and visual people? Like, that's pretty tough to ask, isn't it? Yeah.
It is, and that's it's now why I got a business out of it, because it's tough to do. So
you're good at it.
Yeah.
Well, Maury, I'm assuming that it's up to the communicator to up level, to regulate the story for the appropriate audience, and this is probably where companies and individual contributors come together. Company's responsibility is to make them aware of what the audience is, what the audience cares about. The seller or the communicator's responsibility is to regulate their story to make sure it's reaching the appropriate audience. Can you talk to us a little bit about the importance of doing that? For example, what I found in my life is I have to be very careful because the way I tell stories is with a lot of emotion and if I'm talking to somebody that's typically more financially oriented or data oriented or technically oriented, sometimes what can happen is my message becomes a little distorted. There's noise because they don't consume that story the same way. Does that resonate for you? And how do you coach people on how to do that?
Of course. So you asked me that question a little bit earlier. First, it's, you got to know where people are in the buying cycle.
Yeah.
You got to know who's in that room. And you got to throw some questions out there. And all this is leading to, I'm going to call it what I've written as the epic story structure, which is really easy. Any salesperson on this call, the leaders on this call or on the podcast, that are listening in, I'm going to just give you a structure so that you can go ahead and use the things I'm about to say and just plug it into the structure. So you got to know some things. You can't necessarily go in there cold and nail it every time. You could, but if you know who they are, again, not every financial person is just, I think one of you guys said this, is not just a bean counter. They have likes and desires. They might go to art shows on the weekend. You got to find out what they're all about with the stories you prompt them earlier on. See what you can learn about them. So the way you pepper them in is, you want to leave, basically what I do is every 3 slides, a little something new, right? Every 3 slides, it's for the different story type, for the different learning type.
Got it.
Right. So I'll go total visual, then I'll go more of a bullet list, which is very small. Again, more audio, but like a couple single words, no paragraphs in my presentations. There is no way I'm putting more than 6 words on a slide. That's for me to deliver the value. Right. So you put some words on there, a little bit more visual, and then you do a little bit of a list for those people that are more, learn by reading. Right. When you do the combination of the two, which is a video, which is why this is, so successful for companies, audio and video comes together, the retention rate goes up to 66%, 10, 20% retention for either or 66% memory. If you do a video that's impactful, story-based, et cetera, and then where are they in the customer journey? So, and then again, you do the tactile, which is, it's a good case study. So you go 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3.
And then the kinesthetic, you're probably doing the stuff again. You're lacing and stuff to connect through the emotions of the kinesthetic.
Absolutely.
Right?
And they need, as I was going to say, for the kinesthetic is they're going to learn by example or by, touching it, feeling it, whatever. If you have a product, bring it, bring a piece of it, throw it in their hands so they have something to play with. Something to hold on to. Zoom world, pretty difficult to do that, but it's not unusual to send something out. You could send something out over there, but they're going to be more into the case study, the application of, right? Everything should be about the benefits and the results. It's not about necessarily how things are done is later in the customer journey. So let me walk through the customer journey, the stories that fit into each, and then I'll give you that story structure because I think that's where this is going.
Yep.
Sure.
So the way I lay out the customer journey is a lot of folks just look at it as the funnel, right? Top of funnel, middle funnel, bottom funnel, pop, out comes a customer, right? And so I looked at that years ago and said, a customer is going to see our funnel and be pretty insulted. They're going after everybody. We got weeded out because we made it through the infographics and all the automated drip campaigns, all the stuff that we build, and then pop out, got a customer. Great. That doesn't make them special. So I flip it on its head. So my customer journey is a mountain. You guys are the Sherpas, the salespeople are the Sherpa. You're the guide. You're the one, again, movie analogy. In a cop movie, you're the other cop. You're the one that walks them through. You're the grizzled mentor. You know what I mean? You're the ones that's gonna be your Obi-Wan Kenobi in Star Wars. That kind of thing. So you're the one that's gonna guide them through. So the attract phase, they don't even know they need you. They don't even know they have pain. You got to poke at the pain and say, "Oh man, maybe I do have a problem there. Well, I can win if I do something. Let me follow this a little further." Boom, into the landing page. Give them more value. That's where that video comes into play, that kind of product landing page explainer video. Oh, I get it. Yeah, I do want to learn a little more. I'll throw in my email. This is cool. That email, people want $20 in value in return. Like if you went out on the street and said, hey, can I have your email? Can I have your, no way, not a chance. $20? All right, I'll give you my email. I'll delete you later, but for $20, I'll give you my email address.
Sure,
so people are thinking they want $20 in value. So that video and that first section of the page has to be valuable enough. People say, okay, I'll give you something here. I'll give you my email address. Then you're into the nurture and educate phases. You got to nurture them along. And this is add value every step of the way. You're not talking features. You're not talking benefits. You're learning about their pain, their problems, how you can solve them. Tell me more about that. What happens if you don't solve that? You know, all the questions that John, probably both you guys ask or train people on asking. That's what you need to find out. What happens if you don't do this? What happens if you do? And, et cetera. So you learn those. Now, the educate phase, they're like, yeah, we need this. I'm going to put this in the budget, but I got to look at 5 different competitors. Who got me the most value? Who guided me down that path in the best way, the easiest way, and the way that I wanted to learn?
Right.
They're going to be top of the list. And if you give more value, the website, now the salespeople, more value, you literally can come in at $100,000 where your competitor could be 50, and you're just more valuable. They want to go with you because you learned those things. And then here's the big thing, especially in SaaS, is once you win the customer, you got to expand the account. You got to expand that. It's like, great, I got new business salespeople, they win it. And then maybe it's some companies, again, I'm sure you guys, have created your own customer experience teams that can sell, but that's expand that relationship. New products, new development, new relationship, more seats. You don't want to just let them go. I mean, it's 7 times less expensive to grow an account than to try to win new. So that's where you go. So that middle cycle, if they enter in the middle, they're probably going to want to know, let's say it's that nurture, educate. Just throwing this out there, nurture and educate. They're going to want to know, who am I dealing with? Who am I going to be stuck to here for the next year or two? I want to learn about your culture. Like, now's the time. I'm just learning about, I got pain. I don't want to know that your CEO was living on the street and started this thing, and then he came through later. I absolutely do. I want to know that. That's amazing. But that's in the early stage. The early stage, a lot about them. It's why this is important to me. Middle stage is what it's going to do for me. And then the end is how you're going to do it, how you're going to execute. And I think a lot of these salespeople are putting the how up at the top, and they're getting crushed.
Yes.
The how is going to be as a feature battle, and they're going to get destroyed.
Yes. Right. So important to understand, just because you came into an account and you're selling doesn't mean they haven't already started that journey. You may have to figure out where they are, and you may still have to go back to the beginning for you and see if you can align to where they are in their journey. Right.
Yeah, exactly. You got to line it up as close as you can. You won't always know exactly, but you can tell pretty close by some of the questions that you ask. That's why getting somebody on there live is really important, or having questionnaires and having a great website. It's not like a website's a brochure anymore. That's your
Maury, as I'm listening to this, I'm thinking about individual contributors inside of companies. There's an intersection. This is probably and feel free to tell our listeners exactly what you do for a living to help with this, but there's a responsibility of the company to make sure that the sellers have the knowledge and skills related to understanding where a customer is in their buying cycle, the different types of content of stories at the different stages. And then there's an individual contributor's responsibility and character of that individual to be able to apply those stories in their own way. But it's where those two worlds come together. Because if I'm listening to this, I'm like, yeah, well, my company, I don't even know what my differentiators are. And so, and I'm not really comfortable with, how we compete at this level of the game and how we demonstrate. We don't demo the product very well or whatever. Mm-hmm. Can you talk a little bit about what you do and how you bring those two worlds together?
Absolutely. Thank you for asking that.
Yeah.
So it's huge. It used to be, in my opinion, there's marketing over there going to trade shows and trying to generate leads. Hey, well, we're sales. Some of those are going to be okay. I'll take some of those, but I'm sales. This is where the action hits. All right.
Yeah.
Don't be throwing me 10 bad ones. I don't think that's the way it works anymore. 10 years ago, sure, you can operate a little bit more like in a silo. 10 years ago, you can, you have your champion, they can run you through. Now everything is much more communal. You got to be able to share information. So what do we do to solve this problem, right? So we blend the marketing and the sales teams together with the company story. You got to know your company story, why it matters. The executives telling that to investors, executives telling that to Wall Street, executives tells that internally to the team to motivate them, give them the great stories, and get them pumped up. Marketing needs that so that they can get the leads in there, generate the right leads. You don't want bad leads. You want the right leads, qualified leads, that really will go somewhere. So that's the marketing story. Now you go and you give them the collateral all across that customer journey. So this is what we do. So we not only help them create their story. Most people, I say, give me your elevator pitch. 3 minutes later, I'm still listening to their elevator pitch. That building must go to 9,000. That's going to the heavens.
Yeah.
So no, guys, that was 20 seconds. You had 20 seconds, so we give them these elevator pitches. We work with them on it. We find out what makes them unique and special. That's for the execs. That's for the leadership. And then for marketing, incredibly important. You need that. That's your tagline. That's your elevator pitch. That's your log line, and just basically your ad copy to get people there in the first place. Now they come in, they're registered. Now it's the handoff to sales. If they're talking a whole different thing, now they're talking product and features, because they got product training, disconnect, I'm out. Customer says, I don't get it. I'm confused now.
Yeah.
If you confuse, you will lose.
Mm.
Got to be simple. Got to keep it simple.
That's really powerful.
Yeah. So the message has to blend from marketing into sales. So now it's down to, we're making that collateral for sales. What's the best format for the different sales presentations? You're not going in at the end of the sales cycle with the same presentation you started at the beginning, right? A lot of pain, a lot of, there's I call it the life-changing event, just like a movie, right? The movie structure is, we meet the person, we empathize, they got a problem. It's a life-changing problem. Rocky's he's going to be a loser the rest of his life if he doesn't win.
Loan shark in the rest of his life.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. So every character, every movie, if you name 2 movies right now, I'll tell you their impending event, the critical event they have to change.
That's the character arc or something.
That's the character arc.
They call it the character arc. Yeah.
The character arc of the hero's journey.
The hero's journey, that's it.
Yeah. So the hero's journey, again, it's your customer. So the customer's journey, you got to make them the hero. So what's their problem? What's the big problem that's happening? And what's the change in the world that everybody else is doing, but you're not? Everybody else, all our other customers, these are the wins that they're making. There's going to be winners out there and losers out there. We want you in the good category. That's why we exist, to help you. Okay, now what's the change? And how do we get there? Boom. What's the next appointment? All right, I'm on board, right? So I just called that the epic journey. Talked about that before. So empathy, grab them with a hook, empathize, you understand where they are. What's the problem? What's the impact of that problem? And what's the change? And call to action. And done. First presentation, short, tease, leave some mystery, right? Get them out there. There's a problem here. There's pain. Now, if you're way down the sales path and you're talking to the executives, same structure, but you're telling different things. You're putting in what you learned through the journey, how to make them a hero, how to make them better. So that's the epic journey. We started off with, so you wanted the story structure, marketing to sales. So now we hand it off to marketing to sales and just heard it. So that's the sales. Yep. So we create those salesperson presentations. We give them sales training as well, but we also pepper in, here's the videos that you're going to play. That you can take a break right now because this video is going to do the job for you. Here's the just say what's on the notes, right? These slides, nice and simple and gorgeous, they're going to do the work for you. Don't get into a feature battle. Keep it on results. What are the results people are going to get out of it? So we create all those and then the infographics. So we call it a sales toolkit. So we create this whole sales toolkit so that these folks, whether they're inside sales or outside sales, They got a library to dip into. This phase customer journey, they need this. This phase, they need this. So we create that whole customer journey. Yeah.
Awesome. Hey, can you give me some spirit? A lot of times we hear people say, well, if I got to be a storyteller, I'm not that good at telling stories, or you're good at telling stories. I'm not as good as you at telling stories, or what have you. We hear all the different levels. Now, when I heard your story, Maury, and how you became kind of who you are, is it safe to say that anybody can tell a story? And if that's true, can you share with us kind of, I think Johnny was giving me some heads up, maybe he was lying about you, but he said that you actually you weren't really comfortable telling stories early on in your life, and you kind of went through a transformation. Are you comfortable kind of sharing that journey a little bit? The point I'm trying to get across is your message, I think, is everybody can tell a story, correct?
Absolutely. Everybody can tell a story. You just have to have some of the basic steps in place. And I'm the kid that didn't raise his hand in school from second grade till like senior year.
Yeah.
And I, wasn't even sure if I was going to college, honestly, like looking way back. And, what am I going to do? Man, I don't want to, all right, I'll give this a shot. I got to get in. So, and then I started, wow, I love doing these presentations. Like I was the shy kid, but once I found a formula that I never, back then, I didn't know this was going to become a book. I don't know. I'd put it out there and the world would say, oh, we can do that too. Thanks for making it easy. I had no idea. I was just jotting notes down in a notebook all the time. So yeah, absolutely. Anybody can tell a story and engage people and get them to share as well. And so that's why I put that. I think the couple of things would be great to people can walk away with, right? You can walk away with the epic story structure. I found that acronym just because it's easy. I want to see an epic movie. Batman's an epic movie, and that kind of thing. So can I lay that out? That's a nice, easy one, and people can just one sentence each. It's E is the empathy. I'm just like you. I started off here, again, I'll just go and I just literally just told that story. It probably followed the format of me shoveling coal. I have no idea. I literally never, let's see if it followed it. So empathy. Yeah. I was a humble beginning, living in a house where you had to shove coal, to dig and that kind of thing. So I had some struggles. I had a real problem. I didn't think I was ever going to make it out of Pittsburgh. Somebody making 70,000 that's like a millionaire. I mean, that's like somebody makes 10 is so unachievable. Yep. It just seems so huge. And I didn't know what I was going to do. And what I did, changed everything. I ended up going to school. I ended up opening my mouth and trying some things and telling some stories. And then I kind of became the funny guy. And even back at Geotel, we had that big, long presentation. I chopped that thing down to like 8 slides and just told the story of the founders, how these two guys met. They got together. This one brought this expertise. This one brought this one, and they attacked these problems. And that's why we exist. I'm like, oh my God, this really worked. One of the senior guys, this guy, Jim Lyons, he's like, can I use that? Can I use that presentation? I was like, you're the most senior guy that sold zillions. Absolutely. I'm honored. And I was like, maybe I'm onto something here. And so, that worked. And then it was, what's the next step? So there it is. Epic, empathy, problem, impact, and the integrity that you bring. And then the C is the call to action. What's the change and the call to action? What's the change in their life and the call to action? Just taking that away, I think people are going to have something of value. And you can do it in 4 sentences, 10 sentences, but everybody's got it in their back pocket.
But Maury, your change and your call to action, then you pick up after tech sales and you get in your, I think you were driving like a Lexus video.
Oh my gosh. You got a memory,
right?
Wow.
And then you drive over the other coast. And now you're doing like stand-up comedy, you're producing movies, you're doing video commercials and videos. How did all of that come about? And talk to us about some of the challenges or transitions or fears that you had when you were doing some of that stuff, because that's the change and that's the call to action.
Thanks for asking about that. So, that's 15 years ago now. I loaded up that's so funny. Lexus minivan. Is that what you called it?
I thought you had like a Lexus, like SUV, didn't you?
SUV. It was
I remember
SUV,
making sales calls.
Yeah, that's right. That's absolutely right. It took you around to those things. In that Lexus. So yeah, I loaded up the car, drove out, took a couple of weeks, brought my girlfriend with me, made a bunch of stops. And it was just, if I don't do this now, I'll never do it. I was 35, right? If I don't go now, my next step is, I think, marriage, kids, let me settle, let me, in a great way, settle down. I mean, it's a good thing, but like have some stability and that kind of thing. I was like, I got to go now. Like this burning desire since I was a kid is inside me, and I have one skill. Maybe my skill could work out there. And now what I thought my skill was, being in front of people presenting, which to me meant I can be an actor. I'll go out there and be an actor. That piece of cake. I've been in front of people for years now. As the kid that couldn't even raise my hand, I was so scared that I'll be wrong. And so, drove out, started, like I said, I did the lunch circuit because I didn't know anything or anybody. Somebody's like, talk to him at a bar and they're like, oh, this person's an actor. And then, can I grab his number? I'm going to take him to lunch. Like actors are like, free lunch, great.
Yeah.
we don't get free lunches.
Well, how many people do the same thing, but they've never been as successful as you have? They go out there there's millions of people go out there and think they're going to break in,
Yeah. What was the difference? I think was, honestly, I think it was a couple of things. One is definitely tenacity. I didn't just give up at the first sign of no. I had a sales career of, what I sell, 1,000 different customers or something at that point. And, 1,000 said no, maybe 10,000 said no at that point. Right. I think I had some armor built up. So when things weren't working out, I'm like, this is the process. This is how it goes. You don't win every one. And I think,
basically you were making sales calls, buying people meals, networking your way through.
Yeah.
Like, keep going. Give us.
Okay. So I'm taking them out to lunch, and then somebody says, oh, go to this website, or here's my casting agent and that kind of thing. I was like, okay, let me do my homework. And again, it was harder back then because the internet wasn't quite as easy as it is now. And so I'm like, okay, so she cast movies, and she's casting Ocean's 13. All right. That's a sequel to a sequel. All right, good. All these big names are in there. These guys are from New York, Pacino, this and that. Let me do some background. So I started throwing out things I knew about New York. So I called and I said, I see that you're casting, you need some high rollers. That's what this says. I love to gamble. I just got back from Vegas. I think you need people that really know what they're doing. Wouldn't that be more helpful than you're an actor, just an actor acting like they gamble? I love going to Vegas. In fact, I love dealing. I'll come in there. I could be one of the dealers. Well, you can watch. So they set me up. So this is so funny. She's, again, took like 4 or 5 calls. I didn't just give up. I kept calling her, and she's like, all right, I'm going to send you out on an audition. So it was for a dealer at the blackjack table.
Yeah.
And I remember this it was on the set of the Housewives of, what was that? The
Housewives of Beverly Hills.
Yeah, it was. I think it was. It was
that's Cap's favorite.
Alarming that McMahon knows that off the top of his head. But keep going.
It's one of your favorite shows.
That's Cap's favorite show. Actually, he likes Orange County women.
Okay. So, anyway, so I'm out there, and I remember right before I walk in, it was whatever. One of the stars. She has her dog. The dog jumps in the fountain, comes over to me. I'm like, hey, does the shake. And now I'm covered with, dog water all over me. And this big star's like, I'm like, not even a, I'm sorry, wow. That's some attitude. So I went in, I'm like, I'm still going to crush this. I did not. I'm soaking wet. I got dog hair dripping down. I'm trying to do the dealing thing. Didn't get it. But they told the casting agent this did a great job, great sense of humor kind of thing. So then she sets me up to go out there and be a high roller for 8 weeks on the set of Ocean's 13. And I said, I'll do it. Now I've got a little bit of something, but I want to create a little scarcity. because there's something I need out of it.
Okay.
And that's called a Screen Actors Guild card. You get into this membership, then you get into these TV shows. You're not just sort of like a million actors out here. You're now in this exclusive club where you can actually do real TV shows, movies. So you get a SAG card, Screen Actors Guild SAG card. I was like, I'll do 8 weeks, but I want to get that SAG. She's like, that's a deal. And so that's how it worked out. And then I used that SAG card to start calling other casting agents. Hey, I'm a SAG member and, just got back from New York. That to them meant I was doing plays, but I wasn't doing plays in New York. But I got back from New York. And anyway, so that started off. I started comedy. I start working out routines. I opened for Joe Rogan, and that was amazing to see him. He wasn't
Comedy
like this.
Store?
Sorry?
Joe Rogan, Comedy Store?
Yeah, well, Comedy Store. Actually, this was at the Improv on Melrose. So Joe Rogan gets up there, and one time I opened for him. I was like, oh, this is going to be great. Talk to him a little bit. Super cool guy. There's no podcast. There's, barely getting into the UFC at that point. And then the next one was I was going up and they're like, Rogan's here. He wants to jump on for like 10 minutes. Cool. He didn't jump on for 10 minutes. He jumped on. He was supposed to be 10 minutes. He's there for an hour.
Yeah.
Going on and on and on. And then I'm supposed to go after this?
Yeah, good luck. Good luck.
Like that's I stopped liking Rogan at that point, and I got burned. Nobody's going to listen to this kid come up after Joe Rogan goes for an hour. But it was cool seeing him work out all his material that became his next, like his HBO special or Netflix special or whatever it was. It wasn't great yet, and that's sort of the lesson here. One of the lessons is you're not going to be good at this at first. Try out the epic story structure. Try out the stuff. Try it with, friends and family. Just a little pepper it in a little bit. Like, yeah, that worked.
The best
build the confidence up and then get
so many different clubs and just bomb and bomb and bomb until they know it works, right? Then they patch all that stuff together and maybe they have an hour's worth of material after like a year or two.
That's exactly
of bombing in these different clubs.
It's so if you don't have Teflon, if you're not wearing your armor, it can be real demeaning because I went through that. So my first time up, it was great. Yeah, no, like the first time everybody was all pumped up. Like my first show was so great. It was one of the best things I'd ever done. 300 people laughing at my jokes and stuff. Next time I get up there, just the next week, different audience, crickets, nothing.
What was the difference?
You hear the forks hitting the plates and stuff, right?
What was the difference? What do you think? The same material?
It was almost the same material. I tried changing a little bit. I think that hurt it a little bit because I started wordsmithing in the wrong way. You start extending it, it's not as funny. Keep it nice and tight and short. For me, that's funny.
Wow.
It's better.
Wow.
And I started getting a little more loose. Like I'm so confident. I crushed it last week. Just, it was also like, instead of like a Saturday night, the first one with all these people, it was like a, Wednesday and there's maybe, 40 people out there with the, eating their wings or whatever. And there's this thing that happens at, when you have 1 minute left, the red light pops at the back of every club. So if you ever go to a comedy club, you just look there. That means you got 1 minute left. You never go over that. Now, Rogan went over by 45 minutes. They're like, he's Joe Rogan. We'll let him do that. But the new guys, you never go over that. So I went through this. And so I started getting so nervous. I started talking so fast. I'm like, where's the damn red light?
Yeah, red light saved me.
Like as soon as that red light pops, I'm out. And so I was like, red light must be broken. So I was like, thanks, have a good show. Next is, Bob Jones or whatever. And I walk off the stage and nobody's coming up. And I go to the host who's out at the bar and he's like, what are you doing here? I'm like, I'm done. Where's he's like, I'm supposed to introduce him. What are you doing? He's like, that was 2.5 minutes. That wasn't 7? I thought it was my 7-minute set.
Wow.
I did it in 2.5 minutes. I got that no laughs. I just started talking so fast. So the lesson on that one was, got to remember, instead of getting nervous, or anxious, like what was going on in my mind, just started reminding myself, because it happened again, is I know it'll happen to everybody, is anxious and nervous is what your brain's telling you, but your body's still excited to breathe in a little faster, heart's pumping, you're excited. So if you tell yourself you're excited, then you're now excited. You're not nervous and anxious, like the same body thing. It's just what your psychology says. So when I went up and I did well, or I bombed, or when I present now, I'm like, I'm just excited. So I actually became the guy that was like, this guy, he might not have the best material, but he's so damn happy to be here. We're just going to ride along with him. So all the shows went much better after I learned that.
Yeah.
Like, he's having a great time. So we're having a great
story.
time.
I mean, you really threw yourself out there. Really threw yourself out there from a kid that couldn't raise his hand in grammar school. Yeah. It's amazing. Really.
Hey, Johnny, before we wrap up, I want to, I just want to ask a couple of, I had one burning question that I had. Do you have any advice, Maury, for people that are out there, they're listening to us and they're talking about telling stories, being empathetic, but yet I'm on Zoom. We might not have started traveling in front of people again yet, depending upon where you are in the world. Do you have any advice for people that are thinking about making emotional connections with people, but struggling because they're looking at them on a Zoom screen or WebEx or what have you? Is there any advice, or is there no difference? Can I still use the same structures and just, it doesn't matter what the medium is?
So that's great. Thank you. So I actually just put a course together for LinkedIn. I'm a LinkedIn instructor, like I had this LinkedIn learning thing on this. So the answer is, it is definitely different, but the structure, what you just said, absolutely the same. My feeling on it is, because we've been remote for about 5 or 6 years now. I actually toyed with it in 2016. And then when the pandemic hit, I was already like, we're 90% remote anyway. This is okay. So, the epic story structure, the presentation structure I talked about, all that stuff is absolutely the same. I think you trim it down for time. You don't go into like you can show up and throw up and sometimes get away with it because they're in your conference room and they're eating the sandwiches or the steak lunch or whatever. You can get away with a little bit more. You don't have any of that time left with Zoom because they're going to tune in. You can see they're looking at another screen already. So what I do is, or what I suggest is, you do a few things. One is, again, you come in to serve. You don't come in like, I want to make sure I teach you this. I want to make sure by the end of our time today, I learn XYZ. And I'd love for you to this. So you put more passion and more emotion in it. So you don't look like, just like a feature list sitting there. You're a person. The other thing is that time at the beginning of the call, that first couple of minutes, I think is extremely valuable. Just sitting there waiting for, is Bob coming? We'll wait for Johnny, and Jane's coming. No. That's a time that you can be bonding right there. And you don't talk about stuff like, how's the weather there? I mean, do your research. Hopefully you look these people up on LinkedIn, you know who they are. Ask them something personal, or bring it up like, last time I was in Boston, I went up to, what was the name of that lobster place? It's in Cambridge. Do you know, John? Oh, it's so good, or whatever it might be.
Sure.
Yeah. Like
connecting with them.
Yeah. Take that opportunity right there to connect. And the other big thing is, I actually like Zoom more. Zoom, WebEx. I like the remote more. It cuts down on all the travel. I'm sitting here in Los Angeles now. It takes an hour and a half to get anywhere.
Yeah.
You have to go to the next town.
Yeah. Exactly. It's like Orange County's, so it cuts down. You can get a lot more done, if you're focused on it. But you don't necessarily have to do I shake this guy's hand? Do I do a fist? Like all that kind of stuff is removed, and you're just people here wanting the same goal. And your goal, again, is to help them get what's going to improve their lives.
Transform them.
Yeah.
Love it. Yeah. That's great advice. Let me do a little recap, Johnny. You ready?
Yeah.
So, couple things. We didn't mention this. Sorry about that, but we want to make sure. I know that you've got a couple of books out there. The first book you wrote was 90 Seconds to Impress. And I think the second book was 6 Lessons for producing a winning commercial. And I think you're actually working on a third book that's coming out soon.
This one came out since. This one, Rise of the Entrepreneur.
Rise of the Entrepreneur.
That one's out now.
We'll make sure the producers put all that in the show notes. We encourage our listeners to go out and to investigate those. The takeaways. I heard you talk about the 5 emotions. I heard you talk about the stuff. I heard you talk about the 3 types of learners, and visual and audio and kinesthetic. I heard you talk about the epic journey a lot. I'm taking that away. The epic journey is epic for me. I really like that one. It was simple to remember.
Right.
8, 27, and 56 seconds was something that really stood out for me. Making the customer the hero in the story and not you. Make the customer the hero. One of the biggest takeaways that I had was match the collateral / story with the buyer journey. It's your job to match the story and the collateral with the buyer journey. And if you're working for a company that's worth its salt, they're probably helping you do that with the content. So before we let you go, Maury, we've got this rapid fire questions that we like to do. And if you're up for it, I'm just gonna launch into them. You ready?
Okay, you sure?
What is your ideal day off of work?
Oh, it's bringing my daughter out to the beach. She's 4.5. She's just, everything is amazing and so cool and fun. So bring her out to the beach. We go bike ride and, make some castles and just see this whole new world of everything. And I'm like, it's beach. It's nice. Whole new world. It's a playground. It's amazing. So I actually did that Sunday and I was like, this is a great day.
Well done, dude. Well done. I like that. What's your favorite meal?
Oh man, it's filet and lobster. It's my surf and turf.
About time we had somebody on, McMahon, with some class in the. I'm just kidding.
Most of them say
we've had pizza. We've had. I like that
pizza,
steak, surf and turf, my man. Okay, favorite movie. This one ought to be good from you. Favorite movie.
Favorite movie is so tough because I got them in different areas. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Seeing
Give us
and
a
learn
couple
something.
then. Give us a couple.
All right. Pulp Fiction and The Godfather.
Oh, I just saw Pulp Fiction the other weekend.
The Godfather, it's
really good movies. Really good.
They follow the structure, guys. They follow epic.
Yes. Yes. All right. I'm hooked on that. I'm hooked.
Journey.
Yes. Michael Corleone.
Best concert you ever attended?
There's been so many, but I got to go with my first, which was Kiss.
Oh, that's awesome. You're too young for that, dude.
52.
Wait, is this Kiss were they wheeled out there, or was this the original Kiss guys?
Oh no, this is platform shoes, fire breathing Gene Simmons, full makeup, full regalia.
Oh, legit.
I was like 8, and somehow we convinced my dad to take us. He thought it was like a circus, right?
That's awesome. That's awesome. Okay. The last one we have, and it's really near and dear to our hearts, and we want to give you the opportunity to share it with us, is your favorite charity and why.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
So it's actually a customer of ours, and we donate a lot of services to them. In fact, I take every client, and they don't realize it all the time, but we donate a portion of every project to creating our services and donating money to breast cancer research, because my mom had breast cancer and is made it through, remission and so on. So
awesome.
She read the woman's book that I went out there and met with about 5 years ago, and I couldn't believe I was meeting the person that wrote the book that helped my mom through this. So they are trying to eradicate breast cancer, not just treat it. They want it gone. So they're doing some really cool work.
And what's the name of it?
Susan Love Breast Cancer Research Foundation.
Susan Love Breast Cancer Research Foundation. We'll make sure that we put that in the show notes. Dude, it was absolutely a blast to meet you. And thank you for taking the time. Johnny, I'm going to let you bring us home.
No, Maury, I mean, I'm so excited to have had you. I think the audience learned a ton. It seemed like this hour just went by to me in 5 minutes. I feel like I have 50 more questions for you just based upon, what we talked about. But it just shows the impact that you had in just a small amount of time. So I think people are going to love it. You did a fantastic job. And again, thank you so much for coming on. Really appreciate it.
You're welcome. I appreciate you having me here. You guys are legends. Thank you.
Yeah.
You're the man. And thank you to our listeners for listening to Revenue Builders.
Thanks for listening to today's episode. Be sure to check us out at forcemanagement.com.